This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be here.
Got a week off from you. I kind of missed you, to be honest with you.
Well, that's sweet, and I kind of missed you too, but I know who really missed us, the viewers. The viewers could hardly get through the Memorial Day observance without our wisdom.
I'm pretty sure that they got by just fine.
Probably
Of course,
so.
half of them were underwater, so which is where I want to begin with today, which is this flooding that is devastating Arkansas up and down from Fort Smith down to past Little Rock and into Pine Bluff. Could be months before this thing, we see a recovery, before we see the waters recede and people get back to normal. Arkansans are resilient. They will fight through this, but at the same time, we get kicked a lot. What's this going to do to the Arkansas psyche, do you think?
Well, I think it's harmful. I mean, but it's arguably no more harmful than it is to any other place that suffers a natural disaster. I was doing some research this morning on Hurricane Sandy, remember, and the flooding in our major population center on the East Coast. I happened to be looking at Tom Cotton's voting record on disaster relief there for a possible bit of commentary on that. But it's things that linger have economic and a psychological effect, and I think this sadly will have both. But we'll handle it. We'll dry out eventually, and we'll go on.
We'll rebuild.
Sure.
We will rebuild. All right, you had an interesting column over the weekend.
Well, thank you.
Related to ethics.
Yes.
Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, you talked about used car salesmen and attorneys in the same column, which a lot of people do that, but you made a more interesting distinction there. Tell me a little bit about the point you were trying to get across.
Well, actually, if you read that column and you also read the front page, you saw a lot of what I was talking about. The front page had an excellent investigative piece about the State Crime Laboratory's assistant director being 12% owner in a company that seems to have, that is led by her husband in an executive role, and it seems to be set up to tailor some sort of toxicological reporting apparatus to the agency's needs. And the point of the article was this is not illegal. It could be illegal, but the DF&A director gave a waiver because it was in the best interest of the state. But the point is, it's either wrong or it isn't, you know. And the point of the Jeremy Hutchinson article is really the key to ethics. We can do a lot of legislation, and we need to, but my maxim is, when in doubt, don't do it. Yeah. So if you have to ask the DF&A director, can we get away with this? Your ethics question has already been answered.
Disclosure is not enough, is what you're saying.
No.
There should not be the appearance of impropriety.
With all due respect, my old friend Mike Beebe was big on disclosure. He liked to say, if we have disclosure, that's what we need. No, we're getting into an age. Somebody read my column yesterday and asked, do you think we're getting to a point where this kind of relationship, a relationship with a lobbyist or a vested interest as a legislator, or a new one after your election, whether we will actually forbid that? And I think we're getting there. I think this whole this whole federal investigation, which is not disclosed I don't think it's disclosed new levels of conflicts or greed or even corruption. I think that's been there for decades, but it has brought it into focus. And in this era, when the Republicans want to be seen as reforming the state, reforming a culture, I think we're getting close to the point where we can actually outlaw some of these actions rather than merely say disclosure. Hutchinson's deal is two-pronged. I mean, he's charged in Missouri with bribery by taking a lawyer's retainer and then doing work from Preferred Family, what's that company called?
Preferred Family Services.
Taking a retainer as a private attorney for them and then doing obvious favors for them as a legislator. Up in Missouri, a grand jury and the federal authorities say that's bribery. It's in a citizens' legislature. Part of the point I was making yesterday was everybody. I mean, you could have a legislator who runs a diner, could a lobbyist go have hash browns and scrambled eggs there? You know, that's where do you draw that line, and how does it work in a citizens legislature?
We had a legislator that had a diner up in Northwest
Yes,
Arkansas.
I use that for a reason. Who got into some trouble in this matter? But I think we are, as I talk to legislators and legislative leaders, I think we're nearing a point of actually passing something with teeth. The problem is the detail. Where do you cut in the exemptions, and what are the unintended consequences? But I think we could get there.
This decades of, we seem to see another level of legislative corruption. You know, it just kind of comes in waves from time to time. It's like a remake of an old movie, sort of just new actors in there.
Right. There are not a lot of new tricks, and the opportunity is, particularly in a citizens legislature, part-time legislature, and particularly with lawyers. I mean, a retainer is a nice word for buying somebody, in a way. Now, what are you buying them for? I think Jeremy Hutchison's defense is, can you produce records to show that you did actual private legal work? And if you can, it's the same as a legislator who's a car dealer selling a car. Here's the good service we provided. The relationship ought to be prohibited, but it's not. But for it to be under federal law bribery, he needs to have taken money directly for legislative service, which means that legal retainer will have to be a scam that he can't prove otherwise. And that's the case.
Incumbent upon the prosecution to prove that there was that quid pro quo.
That prove that he took this money, he provided these services, he provided this legislative assistance. In between there, the money that he took, ostensibly for a private service, they've got to show he did not provide it, and he needs to say I did, and be able to demonstrate it. So that's what I guess that trial will come down to.
Bernie Sanders coming to the Walmart shareholders meeting the middle of this week. It's a publicity stunt. Does it intrigue you?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, here's why, and I've got to invoke another local news show, not by name. I'll just say that yesterday another local news show did a little takeout on this matter. A shareholder employee of Walmart in North Carolina, a pharmacy technician, is a political activist, workers' rights activist, and she intends to propose on Wednesday something that will go down to crashing defeat, which is that employees get a representative on the board. She has asked Democratic candidate and Senator Sanders, to whom she supports presumably for president, to come be her proxy and make the presentation at the Walmart shareholders meeting. It's a political stunt, yes, but it intrigues me, and I've written about it for tomorrow, because yesterday this other news show had on Bob Ballinger, right-wing senator from up in Northwest Arkansas, who's the kind of guy, we news professionals know if you need some conflict and need a quote, he's the kind of person that you call. and they called him, and he said, you know, this is kind of an attack on Arkansas, because Walmart is Arkansas. And I think it's an attack on all of us. I'll go into some detail tomorrow to say, no. And it's not at all. Walmart is a company we're proud of. Walmart has done a lot of good for the state, what the Walton family has, but they're not the state. No company is the state. And the fact of the matter is, here's the irony. He's coming here to say the workers, the gap between what the executive makes, $23 million last year, and the average employee, $19,000, that's 1,000 times more, is wrong. And we need to do something about that. And Bob Ballinger is trying to say this is anti-Arkansan or un-Arkansan and an attack on us, when the voters of the state spoke on the same kind of issue just months ago.
Right.
Raise the minimum wage, which is he wants to raise it to 15 federally and limit the gap between the executives. I think, though people won't accept it because it just doesn't make sense to them right now in the current political culture, Bernie Sanders represents what I see as the quantified Arkansas values more than Bob Ballinger. On this issue, Bob Ballinger wanted to undo the voters' will on minimum wage. So that's what fired me up into a piece of commentary tomorrow.
Look forward to reading it.
All right.
All right, lastly, Robert Mueller finally speaks.
Yeah.
press conference, basically says the investigation's wrapped up, reiterates his points again. Did him finally speaking change anything?
Not a single thing. Not a single thing substantively. Now, it changed the fervor, particularly of the anti-Trump side. But really everybody heard in what he said what they wanted to hear. Nothing was new, and you've got a new push for impeachment. But Mueller, in the end, didn't say anything new, didn't say anything that wasn't in his report, didn't say anything really. Just regurgitated what was in his report, and I was amazed by the mad rush to hear what you wanted to hear in that. Here's what it comes down to. I believe, Mueller said, I'm going to go out and talk, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to hope I can send a signal what I really meant, because I think Barr has misrepresented or undersold what I said. But he's such a bureaucrat and such a legal stickler and such a Boy Scout that he ended up, what was it, who's the, Meacham, the historian on
John Meacham.
John Meacham from Nashville, on Meet the Press yesterday said Mueller gave himself a mulligan and hit it into the lake, because, which I thought, that's exactly right, because he said, I'm going to do a do-over, but he hit it right back where it was. He didn't accomplish anything. And here's what it comes down to. It comes down to a couple of things. But if Mueller Mueller could have put in his report, we are forbidden by federal Justice Department policy from charging the President of the United States with a crime. We accept that. We are not, however, forbidden from saying we believe he committed one in these 11 cases. He could have said that. And, all right, Mr. Barr, you deal with it. Mr. Trump, you deal with it. American people deal with it. Ms. Pelosi, deal with it. We're saying this is what it was. He was not willing to say that. If he's not willing to say that, then you got not much more to say. If the Democrats in the House want to impeach, then they've got the Mueller report. They've got 11 examples of what may be obstruction of justice. They've got their own House Intelligence Committee. They've got their own House Judiciary Committee to investigate. You got, presumably, what's his name? Adam Schiff has got his own information. Let's bring up some articles of impeachment and do it. The other thing it comes down to is that impeachment is somewhat a judicial issue, a prosecutorial issue, but it's also a political issue. And you're going to lose in the Senate. You're going to lose close to an election. We've got a recent history of impeachment backlash against the party doing so. The best way to get rid of Trump, if you think we need to get rid of him, is for the people to do it at the next election. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it is okay. It is not immoral to consider the political practicalities of whether to impeach the guy. Yep. And we don't, and particularly when the special counsel won't give you a straight answer. You know, absent a straight answer, I think it's foolish. I'm with Ms. Pelosi. Not yet, not with what we know.
Maybe Mueller eventually testifies and gives a straight answer.
You want to bet?
No, because
I believe he said my report is my testimony.
Yeah.
I think he will say that's not my role.
They can still compel him.
They compel him to testify.
If he's a by the book guy and they subpoena him, he'll show up.
I'm not saying he won't show up, but what's he going to say? Mr. Mueller, do you believe these 11 instances, though you couldn't charge me with a crime, do you think they amount to a crime? You want to know what he'll say? My report is my report. And that's a decision for others to make. This is what we. When it's not actually so, he could have said.
Well, maybe somebody makes that point, gets him to say it.
We'll see.
We're sending you to Congress.
You know, that would be a good idea, but it's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Oh, John Brummett, the Arkansas Democrat. Good to see you.
Take care.
All right. That's all for today's program. I'm Roby Brock. We will see you next time.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power. to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.